In 2005, I was just 19 when I volunteered to go to Iraq and look for roadside bombs. My service changed my life. After 20 years, I want to help veterans tell their stories. Grab your whoopee, sit back and relax. I'm your host, Joseph Yankton, and this is Rank and File. Hello, welcome to Rank and File.
Good to be here.
So, Justin Tew, this is episode 5, and thank you for being here. This is awesome. We've been connecting offline. We met playing poker. You were sitting right next to me at the poker table.
Yes.
And it was a great evening. All of us vets were just talking about our experiences. The guy across from me ended up being a guy I went to basic training with.
It's one of my favorite moments that I tell people about.
Of just us like,
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, we went to basic training.
And I was in shock. I'm like watching a tennis match. I'm like, this is beautiful. This is why we do this.
It was truly random. You're not special forces, right?
No.
You're not an Army Ranger.
No.
Okay, not a Navy SEAL.
I went in on a RIP contract, but I opted out of Ranger and went solely to Airborne.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you were regular Army.
Regular Army, yeah.
Okay, so well, let's begin with your childhood. Let's go we'll start there. And what did you play with GI Joes as a kid? What was your cool thing? Because you were born you're a 90s kid. I know that.
Well, I used to marshal all sorts of things, Remember Muscle Men?
Yeah.
So I used to marshal Muscle Men, Rambo, Skeletor, basically any ragtag group of action figures into different poses and whatever, and so yeah, I played with those things. I had like the football shaped toy box with all that stuff, if you remember that, and everything seemed to have a shape, like even like phones, like some of the phones were football shaped and stuff like that. It's kind of funny to think about, but and yeah, so as a kid, I was pretty quiet, pretty reserved. Did a lot of my playing in isolation, grew up low socioeconomic in like apartment buildings around like the St. Paul area. Father was Army. So from 1 to 3, I lived in El Paso, Texas. He was a medic. Mother was born in Florida, and they met each other in Minnesota. And when he went in to serve, they were married and had me and my brother. So I have one other sibling who lives in Texas right now.
What's his name?
Josh.
Josh.
Yeah, he's a great dude. Real estate mogul guy, but devout Christian and really involved in the church, and makes a huge difference in the world down there. So,
did he join the military?
He did not.
Okay.
And so after Texas, we moved back to Minnesota, and that's when we were, living in sort of like a low socioeconomic situation. My father was trying to find work as like a security guard, which kind of tracks,
Mm-hmm.
probably a common service that men will go into after they get out of the military.
I've done that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me too. And I believe my mother was candy striping.
What's candy striping?
I was just like working in a hospital, delivering like papers and stuff like that, between offices and stuff. I think that's what she did. I was really young at the time, Childhood was a lot of strife, a lot of scarcity. Sometimes there wasn't food in the fridge. Mm-hmm. We were on welfare. We did what we could to survive. My parents did what they could to survive. They were like, at different periods of my life, I look at how we existed in that state as, I had a lot of resentment as a young man, about that. And now I look at their traumas and I see them for who they are and what they were going through. And we were all just kind of surviving, right? We had dysfunction. So there was a lot of dysfunction, meaning like abuse and stuff like that in the household. And we went through that as graceful as any human being can, each having our own role in it and struggles. You know, my mom was often, bedridden with depression, you know. My father, after through the dysfunction and through the abuse, ended up leaving. He did.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, it's tough, you know. Being a 5-year-old kid and not understanding the abuse, not understanding the position that you're in, why you have to sustain certain physical traumas, or just like carry the burden of not even really having the capacity to understand what's going on between two adults who are in dysfunction, and having to hold that space that they've created, you know, and exist in it. There was often a lot of tension. And later on, many years later, when I went through CPT, which is cognitive processing therapy, we actually skipped past a lot of my military traumas and went to what they had called index traumas, which were things that occurred in my youth.
Okay.
Where I started to develop a lot of the nervous stuff that we've talked about, you know. That's was the genesis of my anxiety, right?
So is it like when you're a kid, you take your day, when you take any day, you know, as like a frame, right? And then you take the next day and you take that frame and you put it on top and say they're translucent, and you can like, all right, this is a normal day. This was the day after that. And then after your experiences in general can stack up and be like, okay, well, this was consistent enough. This was consistent enough. This is what normal life is. But then when you stack it next to another person's life, like, wait, those things didn't happen to you? Like, no. And then you're like, wait, what's normal then, right?
Yeah. My uncles would often step in. So I give a lot of praise to my uncles, because, you know, they saw that what was needed. You know, they saw the absence of a father. And so they came in the best they can. I mean, granted, all these people who are trying to support us were all living their own lives. They all had kids of their own. They all had objectives of their own, you know. And so I offer into that, you know, space like gratefulness for that, you know. And my uncle stepped in and they coached us, you know, with on little league teams and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember sometimes going to other people's houses in better neighborhoods, and, you know, the parents would be like, "Hey, honey, want a cookie? You hungry? You need anything?" You're like, you know. And I just remember kind of experiencing the contrast in a very vivid way, and developing my own sort of like, okay, that's not okay. Mm-hmm. Is this what I deserve? You know, do I deserve to be nurtured? You know, and so, and a lot of times, I didn't really know that I did. And, you know, I haven't talked much about like some of those things, you know, like the scarcity, you know. I mean, there were times when I would go into the fridge for a period of time, it could be a week or 2 weeks, where there wouldn't be anything, or in the cabinets, and you would scrape together whatever you could. If there was brown sugar in the kitchen, you would, even if it was hard as a rock, which it was sometimes, I would grab that out and eat it, you know.
And keep it like a cracker in there to keep it from hardening or something like that. There's like a trick.
I think there is. Yeah, there is.
Put like a saltine cracker in the sugar to keep it from.
Yes. Yeah.
I forgot to. We're going really, really deep, and I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Can we do a prayer for the podcast, for the episode?
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, thank you very much for today and our guest. I just ask that this episode goes out and helps those that it can. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks for that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and so there was a point, and it's sort of like a point that I hold on to, and for a long period of time I held on to it as like a badge of honor, you know, and
Also like a mark on your armor.
like a mark in my armor.
Like
yeah.
I earned that
little
scruff.
notch. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And I remember there was a particular part of time where I was really hungry, and we had went to the food shelf, and at the food shelf they had this big jug of Jif, and it was the crunchy type, which I hated. But I remember when we got home, I had taken that Jif peanut butter at some point, maybe weeks later or whatever, and I'd hid it. I took it, you know, and I took it from the cabinet and I hid it underneath the couch and just kept it, because I just felt like that at some point in the future I might not have any food, or I might be hungry again, and I might like want something to like dip my hand into and eat, you know. And so I would often pull that jar of peanut butter out from underneath the couch and eat it, and then I would put it back under there, and essentially kind of like rationing it, you know.
How old were you?
So this was between like 5 and 7, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, you had enough sense of the future. You feared a repeating event in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I just know that I was hungry. I mean, it could have been even more primal than that, where I was just kind of like I need to hold on to this because I'm going to be hungry, you know. And one of the things that were tough with that was that, or the feelings that were tough with that was that I had guilt, and I had to hold to in with that action that I was taking something from my family for myself, which I really don't think any kid should have to go through, you know. And through that, or from that, I think, and other events like that I've held together and say, like, you know, stacking frames, I started to develop this innate form of paying for protection, you know, where like whether it was seeing my mom abused or me being abused or having to deal with like a period of hunger, you know, that I had to protect people from that, you know. Well, obviously I had to protect myself, you know. And so, yeah, there was different instances during that time that were really difficult. One of the other events that I hold on to that was probably the most traumatic was an instance of physical abuse where it's the goofiest story how it starts. But I was in my room on a timeout, and my cat was swatting at a fly on the screen and ended up catching the fly with her claw and then ate it. Ooh. Wow. And right when the cat ate it, I started puking. Oh. You know, my mouth started filling up with puke, and I was like, oh, I have to run to the restroom. So I started running to the bathroom, and I didn't make it. I was like covering my mouth, and puke started coming out around my hands, and, you know, all over the hallway as I was, you know, scurrying to the bathroom, and so I didn't make it. And my dad was pissed. I think he was upset that he had to clean something up that was a shock to him, you know. And I don't know, maybe I was probably the easiest person to take the blame for that, you know. But like, Anyway, my father had exacted his discipline upon me, you know. And I remember later that night when my mom had gotten home, they had a conversation within earshot of me, where my father was like, "Well, what are we gonna do?" You know, because I had some bruises on me, and my mother had said, "Well, we're just gonna hide it." So basically, I just had to sit there and listen to them say that they were like talk about, hash out how they were gonna hide it, you know, and that's when I realized that my parents didn't really care about me, like my well-being, you know. I like put those things together. I put the scarcity together and the abuse together and just that conversation. And I was like, do I even matter? You know? And you know, through therapy and stuff like that, I've went back to those times and I'm like, you know, that's where this all started. You know, this is like this protection of like wanting to be there for people who are suffering, you know? And so, yeah, childhood was rough. I went into, after my father had left, so he went to jail for abuse. And I would share that, but and it's not really my story to tell. It's more of I was there and I witnessed it, but it's more of my mother's story to tell, I think. And so we'll just, you know, he went to jail for abuse, you know, so. And then afterwards, he decided he didn't want to be a part of the family. You know, he just disappeared for 6 years. And that's why my mother would spend periods of time in depression, glued to her bed, you know, and that's where, you know, my brother and I, Josh, would have to we'd have to fend for ourselves in a lot of ways, you know. And also what happened from that is we had a lot of our older peers became our guides. Mm-hmm. And so we had, you know, intermittent involvement from our extended family with like baseball and things, you know, and that was great. But Josh and I, we started having to seek that from other places because you have to, you know, as you're in your formative years, you're looking for something. Well, you know, who do you look toward except maybe the older kids in your, you know, they're living in the neighborhoods you're living in, you know, and so as we got older, you know, like around like 9 and 10 and moving from apartments to apartments just for various reasons, you know, getting evicted and, you know, for our dysfunction, yeah. Essentially, you know, mm-hmm. Neighbors couldn't handle like the yelling and screaming that my mom would impart on us, you know, and sometimes we would get evicted or sometimes our financial situation would change and we'd have to move. And when Josh and I were like 9 and 10, living in an apartment in St. Paul, we basically kind of latched on to the gang members in our environment, you know, and you know, we were really like the only 2 white kids in our neighborhood. And
you do have like a Marky Mark thing going on, like.
Thank you. I mean, there was a period of time there where I only dated women of color, and I still have a preference for that, yeah. You know, because that's like the motherly examples that I saw in those neighborhoods were women of color, right. Who were strong and trying to guide their kids out of that place, right? And so, you know, I would witness that, and Josh would too. We've talked about it before, where we've witnessed that, and and from that, always had like a desire to be around strong women, you know.
Yeah, I know. I can share that feeling because my adopted parents, my mom's from Virginia, so she's a white lady, and that I also made that connection as a young person dating. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we clung to the whatever groups were around us, and so, we watched like typical gang violence in that time period in the early 90s, right? Kids getting jumped into gangs for no good reason, jackets getting stolen. The neighborhood that we lived in particular actually housed one of the guys that was involved in the Mall of America shooting in the 90s.
Oh.
And so we actually played football with that guy in the courtyard behind our apartments. And so we were shocked when that happened, and from that neighborhood, as adults, we look back on it, and from that neighborhood, there was 4 or 5 of those kids as adults ended up going to prison for murder. And so it was a really rough neighborhood, The interesting thing about it was that we were really cared for as like I said, the only 2 white kids there. Mm-hmm. People took us into their houses and would feed us sometimes, or we would receive love from the people in the neighborhood, and from that we went into years of skateboarding.
There we go.
And so, leaving that sort of like, they used to call us like wannabes, there was a point in time where we, before that, where we would talk differently, Josh and I, you could talk to us on the phone and you would think you were talking to a person of color,
Can you talk like that right now?
I probably.
Reminds me of the SNL skit where he's like, you need to say this in different ways. Like, what does that mean?
You had to in order to fit in. Yeah. And that was the bottom line. You either melded into that peer group or you would have been an outcast. I guess that would have been the fear. It would never became like an actual thing. It was just like you worried about it. So it was like internally derived, whereas like, am I not going to be accepted because I'm white? Am I going to be treated lesser because I'm like of a smaller number, right? And that was
you
never
understood
the
the customs and courtesies of your environment.
Yeah. I think, in retrospect, I look at it, but as a youngster, I was just like, it was just the primal urges, to just be like, this is what we have to do if we're going to survive kind of thing, And I knew that right away when I had because the first time we moved into that neighborhood, I went to the bus stop. And at the bus stop, 2 of the gentlemen there, they were like, who are you guys? And we were just like, and thankfully my brother knew one of the guys. And so they hit it off and they're like, yeah, hey, good. All right, cool. You live here now, kind of thing. And one of the other guys saw that I was wearing a pair of Jordans. And I was wearing a pair of Jordans because when my dad came back into our lives, he bought me a pair of Jordans. I kind of like I'm back in your life. Here's some, a show of.
I think it was an apology?
Like an apology, yeah.
That's how Dad did.
Not really. Not really.
Well, gift giving can be an act of love.
I think it was
or
his
language,
probably love language, mm-hmm. aimed at me, and we had a lot of unresolved stuff. And so I remember like feeling cool that I had shoes and like appreciating it, and not appreciating the other sentiments of like when I tried to talk to him about our life before, how devaluing it was to have him shut me down and tell me how not important it was because it was in the past and things like that, you know. And so I remember just feeling like the shoes were just kind of like a Band-Aid, you know, where I was like, you know. But anyway, the guy at the bus stop, he was like, dude, give me those shoes. And one of the other guys was like, dude, those are not even going to fit you. I small feet, you know. And he was like, I don't care, take them off, you know. And so I took them off and gave him my shoes. And the other guy pulled them out of his hands and gave them back to me. And I put them back on my feet. But I knew, even though that kind of went full circle in that moment, I was like, this is rough. This is different from what I'm used to, you know. And so that, you know, that was a period of time up until like about 8th grade, and my brother and I, we started like shifting towards skateboarding and stuff like I mentioned earlier. And that's where I really started to like, really started to flourish and kind of like stretch out my legs and feel like a part of something like meaningful. You know, I got into some like really great skateboarding cliques with people, and learned a lot about myself. You know, I was radical. I was I was bombing stairs, and I was grinding and hitting ramps and doing all the things that you know, not necessarily see like pros doing or anything like that. But I was finding excitement in the world. I was finding brotherhood.
You're pushing through fear. Because
I was pushing through fear.
Stunt, that first trick, that's it. It's, you know.
Yeah.
Once you do it, it's like, oh wow.
And two, learning through repetition, because like when you watch skateboarding, you see all the magic, you know, all the culmination of basically maybe even like 500 times of wiping out in one trick,
right?
You know, and of course you get to a point where you don't have to wipe out so much,
right?
But go ahead.
What do you think about the psychology of trying the trick and you're trying it all stinking day and you just cannot land it? Like I was trying to maybe the simplest of all tricks and the pop shove it.
Yeah.
Just that was the simple. I couldn't do it. And I had my friend trying to record it. I was constantly biffing it. Went home, whatever, came back the next day by myself, tried it, landed it, no one saw. First trick of the day, the next day it landed, and then it was just like, but that instance of like your brain the day before, it was all, that was your, what did we call, I used the words earlier today, rehearsal.
Yeah.
So your rehearsal was practice.
Yes.
And then your performance was, your brain was like, you know, I know it. Just chill out.
Yeah.
Like you've overextended yourself.
Yeah.
And just relax. First trick of the day, and the next day, boom, it's done. Landed it. Wow. There's some psychology with stop trying so hard.
Yeah.
Go get some sleep. Come back.
Yes. And and you're pushing yourself. Physically, you're not there. Mentally, you're not there. You're a little bit defeated. The beauty of that, I think, too, is in that when you've done something, you've repeated something like that so many times, the night at which you sleep, your brain is going to take all of that and play it. And because it's something that you did so many times, your brain's going to replay that and you might even have a dream, who knows? But you might not have a dream. But your brain is going to make that entrenched into you, the sulky of your brain, you know, where it's, and that can have a part of that too, where it's like, you know, I remember times like that where I would try something, like dropping in on a ramp, it would not click the dynamic of it. Like they're like, all you gotta do is just lean forward and slap your foot, slam your front foot down as hard as you can, and you're gonna do it, and it just would not connect. And I must have fell 150 times, and I had bruises everywhere. Got the ramp that we were on had like it was kind of slipshod a little bit, you know, or old, and things needed to be replaced. And there was like a screw that was sticking out, and gouged my arm. And I just remember like being really beat up from that and just so transfixed on I'm not leaving here until this is done, you know.
That was your dragon.
That was my dragon.
You had to slay it.
Yeah.
I dropped in one time in Fargo. Well, actually, it was more than once, but I got injured. I was on the edge of the ramp in Fargo, and this was during a drill weekend, and so I'm already in the National Guard, but I'm with the rear because my unit's deployed, and since I was a senior, I couldn't go with them, and so it was a Friday night before drill, and I go to drop in, my skateboard took off to the right. I'm on the left side of the ramp, and I sort of fall off the side of the ramp, and my knee just goes right into the concrete, just straight down. And the guys, nobody was paying me any attention because obviously I was new. I've never dropped in before.
Ooh.
But they got to see that.
Yeah.
And then I got back up and I tried to get back on my board, and everyone would just cheered. They cheered that I got back up, and I wanted to keep going. And like at that moment, in my mind, I thought I've been accepted because I got back up, and I'm like, that's what it wasn't that I failed. It was that I got back up and I wanted to keep going. And that community has zero gatekeeping on what you look like, nothing, your clothes, nothing. It's, can you get back up after you miss your trick?
Yes.
Do you want to keep doing it?
100%.
And for me as a young man, I struggled with identity and trying to find my friend group. But once I got in with the skaters, dude, skateboarding saved me because of that.
It saved a lot of people, I think, during that time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if we weren't doing that, we were going to be doing something else, you know?
I mean, the thrill, like so I became a flatlander after that trick because when I was in the National, I couldn't afford, I played my mind. I justified not trying tricks because I'm like, okay, well, I'm in the National Guard. I can't be hurting myself because I'm going to be a soldier, right?
Yeah.
And now, you know, I didn't have long hair because, again, soldier, I have to have the haircut once a month. Yeah. But I loved being able to just cruise. So like longboard, flatlander. But I loved watching the tricks and knowing that how hard that is.
Yes.
Good job, good for you.
Yeah.
And the community's the best. So did you ever watch like the Bones Brigade with Tony Hawk and those pioneer skaters?
You know, I used to watch like a ton of 411 videos. Lots of 411 videos, much of which I really didn't like connect to a lot of that stuff. But I would watch them for the entertainment value of them, you know, and maybe to see like how somebody was doing a trick. Always kind of like have had more of like a relationship to stuff like that, like input. Now I take the collected information and turn it into something useful.
Okay.
Now I have a product. Do it, you know? And so, and then to intermittent laughs, you know, with the 411 videos. But not really. I mean, we used to, like, when we weren't skating, we'd be playing video games. We'd either be playing hockey or Tony Hawks or, you know, seeing who could land the trick with the most points, essentially, you know, or playing, you know, we were very serious about skateboarding. So serious that during that time period, you couldn't, there was a transition from where you could skate freely anywhere into you were like public enemy number one.
It was edgy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And security guards started popping up all over the place, and signs and everywhere. And, you know, they were like, no skateboarding, you know, and we used to take the city bus to St. Paul, Minneapolis, you know, downtown St. Paul, Minneapolis, and skate down there.
Anywhere near here where we're at today?
The Veterans Memorial Center we would go to a lot. There's like a 4-stair there that we would hit.
Okay.
A couple stairs in that like vicinity around there. I don't spend much time there. So I don't even know if they're there anymore, and probably they're all rail guarded, you know, because they put all that stuff on the rails now.
What was the biggest trick that either you landed or your crew, one of the guys that you were with?
You know, probably one of the best guys was Josh Dolan. Josh Dolan, Dave Stanky. Josh Dolan used to very radical dude, very volatile. He'd get mad, he would hit himself, and he would like smash his board on the ground, and I was never really like that, I always thought like, if I break this board, I'm out of board for a long time,
Yeah.
And until I got a job, then I could afford boards,
Did you have like a name brand board? Did you have a Walmart board?
Girl.
Like, what was it? Girl?
Yeah, Girl, independent trucks, Spitfire wheels, almost always, or chocolate.
Did you order anything from the CCS catalog?
We ordered our first skateboards off of CCS, and they were like the no name, the CCS brand ones.
Oh yeah, the cheap, like kind of like the Amazon basics.
Yeah.
Today it was CCS, right? So when I got into that friend group was because there's a kid. His dad was a construction guy, also pastor in Fargo at First Assembly.
Yeah.
Something happened where they put out a thing where his dad agreed to help replace the roof at the church we were at.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back from Bible camp first year, and I ended up seeing this young guy around my age, his son, and we connected, and I recognized him from Bible camp. Like, oh, hey, like we were at Bible, like I saw you there. And he's like, oh, cool. And then we connected. And so every time I went to Fargo, we'd hang out. Every time I go to Fargo, I think I still see him. Like he's helped us out so many times recently, but he was my skateboard friend. And it was, he introduced me to CCS catalog, so I was able to actually order my first board, and it was Element Fiberlight, Phantom 2 trucks, Lucky risers, ABEC 8.
Risers.
Yeah. ABEC 8 bearings, and Spitfire wheels.
Yeah.
And I think it was also independent hardware.
Yeah.
I still remember making my first and like custom grip tape. I mean, it was, ordering your first skateboard, like that was amazing. That was so cool. And it took a while to save up. And I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And we grew up in the country. There was the only piece of flat cement or concrete we had was the basement we had in our house and the goofy sidewalk. And so I would just be going back and forth in the basement, learning how to turn around off of, like, because I'm regular footed.
Yeah.
And be able to spin around to go to goofy.
Yeah.
So that was good practice for like when you're on the ramp, then you go back down the other way. But that was about it. But CCS, I wanted a girl that, because the logo was awesome and it's just like that bathroom logo.
Yeah.
I wanted a shirt or a board because I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah. Eric Costin.
Yeah. Element, they had the goofiest T-shirts that had the most provocative sayings, and it was edgy to wear them to school.
Yeah.
It became weird when people just strictly started dressing, and this might be a stupid topic for the viewers, but as a young person, images for me was a lot, and people who dressed like skaters, they would have the shoes, the whole look, but they never skated. I never saw them at the park. I was at the park, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so posers, fakes.
Yeah. We used to call them posers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then too, like people who we hung out with before we became skateboarders, and we started dressing differently, would sometimes like chide us about how we were dressed. You're like, oh, like, dude, you look like you're homeless now. Like, and you'd be like, you're wearing like cut off Jinkos, and they were dirty usually because you were scrapping with the pavement. You were in a fight with the pavement a lot of days. Your skateboard was, spinning around between your legs and hit, your trucks were smashing into your shins, and you had bruises all up and down. Yeah.
So to get that lit, man, your Achilles.
Yes.
That's like one of the worst pains ever.
Well, when you're on the ramp and it shoots up, and then everybody, it's like slow mo. Everybody kind of watches it come back down, and it like always hits the transition just right, and you're still getting up, and you're like, all right, I'm better. Boom, right in your Achilles. And you just recovered.
Or it takes off and it hits somebody else.
Yes, that too.
And then dude's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. Board control, man.
Right.
Have some board control.
Shoot. Or it teaches a young person about physics.
Yeah.
Like the physics are wild with skateboarding.
Yeah.
Momentum, velocity, forward energy. A tiny little pebble
Yes.
can stop your skateboard
Yes.
dead, and you're just tumbling.
Yeah. And durability.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, if I go back in time, I think of just how durable I was and how that is something, if there's something that I've carried with me my whole life that has been a constant, that's got me through so much, you know, next to God being the highest, is that durability that I developed, you know, which fascinating enough, I feel like came from abuse, you know, taking a beating, then becoming a skateboarder and taking a beating there, you know, fighting, like literally fighting the pavement for hours and hours, you know, and learning that what the human body can withstand, you know. I mean, how many times did you roll your ankle?
I still have, I don't know if that's a problem anymore, but it happened overseas.
Yeah.
And right before mission, I didn't take off my boot. I'm like, it's PT. Ended up getting back to my hooch, threw on my boots right away because I knew my ankle was going to swell up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll just deal with it after mission.
Yeah.
Because we were riding into Buffalo. So I wasn't on foot doing a bunch of stuff. But I couldn't, it was hard to take my boot off.
I bet.
But yeah, it's, I don't know if that was from skateboarding, but I think because I sort of walk like this. And so it's basically almost, it's really easy for me to roll
you
my
have like a
ankle.
little tilt or something. Okay, I got it. You call that like a buckle deviation or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I didn't have flat feet, but
Yeah.
I did karate in middle school, and he made us go barefoot running outside. And I know flat feet is a disqualifier during the physical.
Okay.
And so I had to I think I was close to having flat feet because of all the barefoot training I did.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the reason. Maybe it's not. But it's like all my shoes wear out on the edges. Nothing's.
Got it.
I do not have an even wear on any of my.
You need to like rotate your shoes.
Yeah, I got
if you could.
Yeah, I got to put them on the right foot. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
Did you do any martial arts? Or did
the only thing that I ever, so I was in wrestling in high school, and so I wrestled my freshman year, and that was challenging. Man, I loved wrestling. So that's like at a point in ninth grade when I started to shift out of skateboarding and that identity toward sort of everyone else. Which was different for me because all my life I've always had kind of like an aversion towards conformity, right? And I think at one point I looked in the mirror and was like, all right, dude, you don't really look like everybody else. So look like everybody else so that you can feel okay or something, right? And
where'd you go to high school?
I went to Tartan, senior high.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the mascot? What's the logo?
A Tartan Titan.
Tartan Titan.
With a lightning bolt.
Okay. Yeah.
And great school, you know. Wrestled. It was JV my freshman year. Could not get the guy that was above me. Josh Wigton was just tough as nails. Wrestled his whole life, and could not quite get him off the throne of that weight class, you know. But I did end up going 13-1. As a junior varsity guy, you know, which is pretty decent, and found that I loved the one-on-one fighting, you know, and that was a sort of a base for a period of time in high school where we were into some really kind of the wanderers, the outsiders, kind of our school versus your school, kind of every time we're out, we're going to fight. machismo where it's like it didn't matter where we went, something was going to happen. There was going to be a fight, and everybody would have to prove themselves, And sometimes I remember like waking up in the morning going like dreading that a little bit, because I was like, what's going to happen today? Who's going to start something with somebody? Am I going to have to show up that way? Like a monster or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And so
you liked competing.
Liked competing, liked the
clash.
The clash, yeah.
Of the struggle, the effort, but you didn't like doing it senselessly. Like
I didn't. There were times in high school where people would call me and my brother and they'd be like, we need you. And we'd just get in our car or however, whatever means we could, we'd come out and we would help, And so there was a lot of violence in our youth, a lot of violence. And some of it was senseless. A lot of times we would just we'd try to patch in some value around it where, sometimes there would be a guy and he'd be like, my sister got slapped or something like that. And then we would show up and we would just throw down on the whole party or whatever the thing was, And then we'd be like, we did that for her, and it was brutal. It was just brutal, But bodies everywhere, people tending to wounds, things like, all sorts of things like that,
the cop, from what I hear about the Twin Cities, I didn't grow up here, is that the cops were even different back in the day, which would be expected, but they were more of like, weapons weren't involved, but this is a story I heard that the cops would grab this repeat offender and they would take him behind the woodshed, rough him up, and be like, and it was, I'm trying to do a vague example, but it was more like, all right, knock it off. All right, if we have to come back here, then we're gonna book you. And it's there was no body cams at the time.
No,
but
no.
Did you guys ever do anything crazy enough to get cops involved?
Yeah, and most of the time there wasn't really any charges. The charges that would land would be like underage consumption.
Okay.
Right? And so usually those were the charges. I don't know if that's typical. I just know what my teenage years were like. Basically consisted of drinking, drugs, and violence. And perpetual anxiety.
So you're 5 years older than me. So that means you graduated in 99?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good math.
So yeah, I'm carpenter. Yeah, I can do math, right? So describe what you were seeing on the news for like Desert Storm, like when you were becoming aware of the military, and you said your dad was a medic. So were you interested in that sort of his experience? So what did he share a lot?
So I should just define that. And when I was in 8th grade, my mother was diagnosed with hydrocephalitis, and she had to have a shunt put in her head. And when they put a shunt in her head, are you familiar with what a shunt is?
No.
So a shunt is like a pump that regulates fluid from your brain down through a tube that goes down your neck into your stomach.
Oh.
And they had to take the fluid from her brain because it was putting pressure on her brain and giving her terrible migraines. It's common for people of her age because they were babies were delivered with forceps.
Okay.
So they're pulled out with forceps. And when they put the shunt in her brain, she had a stroke. And so her body rejected it. And after having a stroke, she had to learn how to walk again, talk again. And she was really never the same after that. And so at that point in 8th grade, my brother and I, we ended up living with our grandparents. And at my grandfather's house or my grandparents' house, usually the TV was commanded by Norm. You know.
Oh, that's the name?
Norm. Yep. Storm and Norman.
Okay.
Great guy. They had already raised their kids.
Mm-hmm.
They have 4 kids. They already raised their kids, and so he spent a lot of time, kind of like how a retired man would. You know, he was down in the basement watching the Cubs. They were from Chicago.
Okay.
And he'd watch the Cubs and watch the news, whatever channel news he was watching. You know, which usually probably like flipping between Fox and CNN and comparing the two or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And
what was his trade? What did he retire from?
He was a mechanic.
Okay.
Yeah. And they had businesses too as a family. You know, they had Oscar's Bar, Video Update. So I don't know if you remember Video Update. It was like a small chain kind of Blockbuster in the area. And they ended up selling
a video
that.
rental place?
Yeah, it was a video rental place. Yeah. And so I was really disconnected. Like I said, I was swept away in the anarchy and the chaos of youth and trying to identify, and volatility felt like the norm. Like it felt like my body, the way it was, what I had sustained and endured throughout my younger years, and through skateboarding and that dynamic of friend group, and then the being in sort of like I described, like the outsider, just going getting in fights. It was marked by chaos, and so it seemed like for a period of time that's what was meaningful. Having extreme feeling, right? Whether it's pain or being intoxicated or sexual experiences, you know, just all across the board. If it felt extreme, that was perfect, you know. Jumping off of cliffs at Taylor's Falls, you know, just whatever the thing was, you know. And so I didn't pay much attention to the news. I mean, I was obviously taking classes in high school, and my grades were they weren't great in the beginning because I wasn't in attendance, but I ended up graduating high school. I had to really bear down my last 2 years and focus on school, you know. And so I hate to say it, but I had no idea what was going on in the news.
Okay.
I had no idea.
Well, I think that's a lost experience now.
Yeah.
My 11-year-old daughter has a phone, and she can pull up, you know, news, and there's parental settings, but she's aware of things, and she got the Amber Alert that went off 2 days ago about that 7-year-old girl, 6-year-old girl. Thank goodness she was found. But that's what you experience is not coming back. I mean, I'm sure there are places in America and everything, but the general young person now is going to be on a device.
Yeah. And so
they're going to be plugged in because, I hate that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's tough, you know, and I give my kids grace in that because I want for them to have adventure, but I don't want them to have my adventure. There are parts of it that I think were too much. I had a good dose of adventure, and I think we went a little bit too far in some areas, you know. And however, everything that I had been through later on equated to some tool that I could use in my life. And so, yeah, you know, even like you said, even though even though I didn't pay too much attention to the news and I didn't have a device in my hand, that didn't really actually, like there were maybe a couple kids in our school that had cell phones, like rich kids.
99, 98. I mean, The Matrix, did you watch it your senior year? Was it?
I watched The Matrix in 2001. 2000. No, I watched it in 2000. Yeah.
So you
for
were
the first
you were
time.
like pretty much totally unplugged. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's, I hold it noteworthy that I was able to graduate as senior in 04.
Yeah.
And nobody was on Facebook. Facebook wasn't a thing. It was strictly a college email.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to college. I joined the Army. And so the Army email allowed you access to Facebook.
Yeah.
We thought that was something. So you were, gosh.
You remember Hot or Not?
I do.
Yeah.
We had a unit, Hot or Not, on deployment.
Yeah, you sit in a chair and you'd be like, so I was in the barracks when Hot or Not was on the scene, stateside. And, you'd have like a group of guys and be like, no, that one's, that one's trash. Or, that was amazing, And you could sit there for an hour and do that, and it was just like, what the?
Yep. Shepard had his shirt off and he was the most fit. We called him Captain America. And one of our guys would just constantly rag on him for like, hey man, can I wash my shirt on your abs? Like, oh yeah, a washboard abs thing. And he had the highest rating out of all of us.
I had one on there. I had a high rating for similar reasons, just the abs. I don't know about it. I don't know about anything else. Right. But
it still exists somewhere. Someone's going to find it.
It probably does. I mean, maybe.
Like it's out there.
Yeah. So, when it came time to join the military.
Okay, why? Was it a recruiter? Did you see a table?
Basically what happened for me, and I have to enter into a place of vulnerability for this, and I'll do so willingly. But I was pursuing culinary arts at Le Cordon Bleu at Brown Institute. And I did that right after high school. So right after I graduated, I went right that summer right into Le Cordon Bleu and started pursuing that. And it really, adding that structure into my chaotic life did not mesh.
Okay.
I was like I was trying to be two different people. I had my friend group and we were drinking and partying, and then I had the Cordon Bleu where I was like my uniform had to be perfect, my food had to be perfect, and so it was like you had chaos and you had order, and it was not working.
Did you have a really cool set of knives?
I had a very cool set of knives. I had actually a toolbox, and I had my knives in a wrap, and I had like all kinds of melon ballers and every tool that I needed, in that.
There was a guy his name was Ben. He got accepted Cordon Bleu, and he showed us his knives. And I'm like, "Are you in is this an assassin set? Like it was just all laid out." Yeah. And it was impressive.
Yeah. And I was in the first class.
Okay.
So their inaugural class, and I didn't finish. I ended up getting in an accident in my car on my way out to Uptown to look for some clothes for a weekend party. I rear-ended somebody, and I didn't have insurance on my car, and I lost my license. In that period of time, I lost my license. I lost my car. My car got repoed. Because they found out I didn't have insurance on it, and just everything, right? And I remember sitting in the office of the head coordinator at Le Cordon Bleu, who was, I can't remember his name, it's been so many years now, but he was like a guy from Switzerland or in Northern Europe. Mm-hmm. And I was telling him about my situation. I'm like, I can't continue on with class. I can't, and I can't get here. And he was like, well, you got to figure it out. And I was like, but I just can't. I can't figure it out. I'm like, I'm a knucklehead.
I can't.
I can't. Yeah. And he was like, you know what? You just need to grow some balls. And I was like, I was so mad. because I was so insecure. I was like, you can't talk to me like that. Like, you know, I like what? Oh, that's disgusting. You would talk to me like that. You're like the head of a school. You can't tell me to grow balls, you know, like whatever, you know. And I just remember like lawyering him, you know, and walking out of there and just feeling so like I'm so mad at that guy, and what does he know? And
That'd be cool to find out his story.
It would be cool.
What gave him the confidence to actually say that? You know, imagine what he went through, where he's just like, no, you just need your set of balls. You'll be fine, kid.
It goes to what we were talking about the mirror, you know, and it's like he probably looked at me and saw in me a period of a splice of his life where he was involved in something similar. And he probably knew that if he just gets through it and grows some balls, he'll end up where I am, you know, and I got to tell him that, you know, and I'm like, I couldn't see it. I had blinders on. I was so affected by my world for that period, that 19 years, you know, where I was just like, the world is just shat on me, you know, and I'm a victim to it. And how dare you tell this victim to grow balls?
So you had a Swiss chef.
I think he was Swiss. I know he was European, you know, and he was hard. He was short. He was really, he had like a little man syndrome, you know, and he was like, he reminded me of my command sergeant, Major Mangosing, you know. I was just like, he was tough as nails, and he said the right thing. Yeah. Because in saying that, I took a look in the mirror, and I was like, I remember looking in there. I remember crying. I remember, you know, having some nights where I was bawling my eyes out, just kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know where to go. I've lost my car. I had a dream to become a chef, and I can't get to the place, you know. And
where was your brother during this time?
Similar situations, you know, just kind of like doing a similar thing, but like in his own plane, you know.
Okay. I did not see. Was he older, younger?
Older.
Okay.
Yeah. So. And so he was going through his own similar struggles, trying to figure out this amorphous blob, which was who we had become, molded by volatility. And I recall, like, not actually looking in the mirror, but just kind of like sitting there and going, I've lost everything, and my life is chaos. I need to do something, and it has to be big, and I can't tell anybody. And the reason why it had to be like that, and it had to be in that order, is because I knew that there was a part of me that would stop me, and that other people would stop me. Okay. And I think too, like a part of me was like, maybe I don't have balls. Maybe I'm not tough. Maybe I'm not like, maybe I don't have what it takes to do it. And so when I tell people, they're going to be like, no, you don't, you're too weak to do that. You know, I remember when I crashed my car, my uncle in the basement had told me that, and he had said something similar to the guy at Le Cordon Bleu. He said, you know what, you just need to stop being such a pussy. And then there was just like this theme. I'm like, it's me. I'm doing it. I'm the weak one. I am the purveyor of disorder, you know? And that's when it hit me. I was like, I can shift all of this right now by joining the Army. And at the time, it wasn't the Army, really. I mean, there were periods of time where, like, I had a friend who joined the Marines, and he was like, you should join the military. You know, there was seeds that had been planted, you know, but nothing that like really took in me. I was like, I might do that, you know, kind of thing. And it just kind of like hung as like a floating pink cloud above my head with all the other clouds, you know, like, oh, I could do that. I could do that. I could, you know, very like sporadic and not very organized in my pursuit of anything.
So what drove you for culinary? Like, did you cook a lot for yourself?
I cooked for jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I cooked for jobs throughout high school. We worked at Champs Americano in Woodbury, and we basically ran the kitchen. My friend group.
Oh, your friend group. Okay.
Our friend group. We like had every position all across the line, even in management, and then some people in the front of the house too. You know, we were running the whole show.
I think every young person, boy, girl, it doesn't matter, needs to work at a restaurant and understand what courtesy means.
Yeah.
And how important it is to be the person that's on the receiving end of not getting a tip, working hard, knowing that you took care of this table and they left you nothing. And you're like, and then the table that maybe you picked up a couple things and whatever, they left you $5. You're like, how? And then trying to process that as a young person, like, why are these people nice? Or these people, or you see someone coming in really dressed nice, no tip. Coming in, you know, you judge people based on appearance.
Yeah.
Boom, tip. You're like, how does that work?
It
messes your perspective of people to like, don't judge, just be who you are. And then I think restaurant jobs are the best jobs you can have because that's what I did. I was Pizza Ranch.
I felt a similar thing valeting.
Okay.
So after the military, I valeted a little bit while I was going to school.
Best car?
And
best vehicle?
Say again?
What was your best vehicle?
So we valeted at the St. Paul Hotel over here. And so we had all the Wild Players cars, you know, Backstrom's Viper. We had Rolston.
Did you drive a Dodge Viper?
We had Rolston's.
That's my favorite car.
We had Rolston's hardtop Bentley. We had, you know, like anything you can think of. Some of the stuff would be kept in the circle, depending, you know, like McLaren, like Joe Nassif had a McLaren that he would park up there all the time. And he would walk around and give everybody $20. You know,
oh my gosh.
There were certain people there, like Ham. I can't remember his first name, but the guy that owns the Ham Brewery. He would run around. He would walk around and he would give everybody $20, and you know, yeah. Man. So I remembered that because sometimes somebody would come through with just a beater. And it would be like an old Saab, and you would get in there and you would like grab the steering wheel and your hands would stick to it, and you'd like peel your hands away, and then too, when you got up, you would feel like a cloud of green like stench flowed with you, you know, as you like got up, and you get out of the car and your back would stick to it, you know, you're like, oh, was that like sweat or like what was that, you know?
What was the uniform as valet?
Standard.
Okay.
And so it was just black slacks,
okay,
and a black polo. And I don't think standard exists anymore. I think that outfit was taken over by M Park, I think. And then you would come back on, and you'd be thinking, like you said, like, I'm not going to get anything from this, you know. And two, like, you would look at how the person looked, you know, and like they come out and maybe they were like, you know, they like could barely get into the vehicle because they were maybe overweight or something, and you were like, oh man, they're like taking so long. Like, get in the car, you know. And then all of a sudden they roll down the window and hand you a $20 bill or a $10 bill, and you're like, I appreciate you, you know.
Generosity has nothing to do with perception.
There's nothing to do with perception, you know. And yeah.
So what's your tip, and how do you tip today? Because based on how, when you go out to a restaurant,
I always tip, and I usually look for the good in whatever the person did, even if I had a bad experience. Like I try really hard, you know, because I'm like, you know, often nowadays, you know, like. We often talk about the mirror, but like I'll look at people and kind of just go, what kind of situation are they in, you know? And so when it comes to tipping, I usually try to tip 20%, you know, and every time. So consistency, you know? And I reward big things, you know? there was a time when and so this speaks to the other side, the other part of the spectrum, that you were talking about. It's like one time, this might be one of those things that like if we mention, you might not even be able to include it. But Rihanna was in the hotel, and she was lighting up. She was in there just causing mayhem, and she lit up a cigarette in the lobby. So lighting up a cigarette in a 100-year-old hotel is like not like, it's not a respectable thing to do. And so people were like trying to stop her, and there was chaos. And they had 5 black Suburbans, and I was the only one there, and they wanted them out. And so I was like, all right, go time, baby. I was running back and forth, grabbing those Suburbans. And imagine if you know the Market Street ramp, you can think about any of the ramps in downtown St. Paul. They're tight, especially the old ones. And this is an old one. The one right next to the St. Paul Hotel is really old, and it's tight. And so imagine driving those black Suburbans out and getting them as fast as you can and sprinting back and forth. And I got them all out there. Record time, they were just starting to walk out. And so she had it was her and her whole entourage. And so T.I. was there. And so I let them all into their vehicles, opened the doors for them, and then T.I. was the last one I shut in. And he rolled down the window a little crack, and he goes, "Go get me some matches." And I was like, okay, I'm a working man, I'm like I got to make the customer happy, and I ran. I'm running all over the inside of the hotel looking for matches. The bar's closed, and I'm just like, and finally I landed some matches from one of the guys at the not the concierge, but like the check-in, and I ran back out there, and he rolled down the window, and I gave him the matches, and then he rolled the window back up, and then they left. And so that speaks to what you were saying. It's like you never know, and yeah, man. But I loved that job, man.
You got stiffed by T.I.
I got stiffed by T.I. and that's the funny thing, is that when you do certain things, it sticks with people.
Yeah.
And gosh, that was probably when I was like 26. I was 26, yeah. And so that was after the military. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously the valet was before you lost your license.
The valet was so we're kind of jumping around,
right, yeah. So I'm trying to, yeah.
But I had lost my license before the military, had my license after, to clarify.
Okay.
But yeah, before the military, I had lost my license, and I was in rough shape. And, so back to that, I knew that something needed to be done. And so I went into the recruiter, and the first recruiter I went to was the Army one. And I had some things. I had some things stacked against me. One, I pissed hot, and two, I had like a possession charge. I had like 3 minor consumptions, and some of them I still needed to go. Some of the things I needed to go to court for, and I was like, I wasn't even thinking about those things actually. I was just kind of like, I'm just going to join the military, and I'm just going to like get out of here, and I wasn't running away from anything except a version of myself. I was running away from a version of myself, and an environment that I chose to stay in and make worse, right? And I think the toughest part in that, and why I needed to run away from myself, was because of the agency I knew I had. I knew that every bad thing that was happening to me, I was causing. And so if I were to rate my agency on a scale, I was like, well, you're right up there. You're not a little kid anymore getting, beat on. You're not, like you're making the decisions now, and you're breaking everything to pieces, Well,
that's a huge thing. Ownership and accountability at that moment.
Yeah.
That's key.
And so, and I got I had a good recruiter in that my recruiter landed me. I walked through those doors and I was in. He was gonna vouch for me in court. I was gonna get a $20,000 enlistment bonus because I was going in 11 X-ray on a RIP contract. Okay. And
how come you didn't tell me you wanted to be a cook? Because that was literally your path.
So that's the other thing. I had worked at the St. Paul Hotel, and I had experienced that, and I had this fantasy that what I was doing as a line cook was going to be different from what I was doing as a chef. And there was a rude awakening there too, so that was part of it. I was like, I worked at the St. Paul Grill, and I had to work the Ordway Rush. And we got slammed hard. And it wasn't like Champs Americana where you could just throw up whatever you made in the window. It had to be perfect, Okay. And I remember the stress of that and the pressure of that, and I was like, this isn't what I want to do, actually.
Because you saw the process and the struggle to make chef.
Yeah.
But because the chef has to go through that. Generally, if you want to run the kitchen, you have to have a stack of experience behind you.
But going through the attrition has never been a problem for me.
Okay.
So I've written 3 novels.
Yeah.
That takes something. Going to combat, that takes something. Graduating top of my class in college, that takes something. You got to go through and you have to fight for those things, right? And so why didn't I fight for that? Well, I would more liken it to, like, it didn't feel like my identity. There was something in there that felt like, there was a lot of drinking, and there was a lot of dysfunction. Okay. And so just like The Bear, if you ever watched The Bear, okay. It's like,
I've actually not an episode, but I've seen all the, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And so, if you want the rawest version of what it's like, it's like that. It's like you got a bunch of dysfunctional blue collar people trying to elevate themselves, right? From a shitty kitchen to a fancy kitchen,
right.
And people always say you can't, wherever you go, there you are. Right?
Okay.
And so often the people who work in those places, they are who they are. Mm-hmm. They've lived rough lives. They've been through ample stress and attrition in their own lives, and they've and it comes out and they exude it in those places.
So what was the best thing you can take away from your kitchen experience?
Well, the hierarchy. So I remember I remember being okay with being a Joe, like at the bottom. I remember when I first went there, you had to take a practical. When I first went to the St. Paul Grill to get my job, I had to cook the chef something. Chef Andre was the guy at the time. And so they have a amazing kitchen. It's like levels, take elevators to the different levels, and the equipment down there is amazing because it's for the hotel as well. So it's for the hotel and for the restaurants, right? And so I had to take an actual exam. It was 3 pages, 25 questions, and it was all easy stuff, all stuff that I was just if you had been working in the industry for a while, you were like, boom, all right, we're good. And so, he let me loose into the kitchen, and I made this beautiful pork chop, and that they had pork chops marinating, but I broiled the pork chop. I made this amazing bowl. Garde-manger was my like specialty. So like, carving fruit and shaping it and stuff like that. Right. So I've always had sort of like an artistic side, And so I made this beautiful bowl that I carved and shaped and filled it with tossed some like melon bulb fruit and lime juice and honey, and he absolutely loved that. And he had told me that like at that time he was like nobody had put this kind of effort into it, And so I had really impressed him and gotten the job. And what's crazy about that is I impressed him and I got the job. And I remember being passionate about those parts of it. But then when I got on the line and saw that it was just like champs, I was like, oh, this isn't like the professionalism wasn't there. And not to speak badly about them, it was what it was. And I was okay with what it was. I wasn't okay with myself existing in that space with what it was. Because I wanted to, a part of me, and remember we talked about this, like I went into chaos and I went into anarchy. And then I wanted to go into something different. I started to crave that. Like I had a deep, instinctual hunger for getting out of where I was and going into some form of order, some shape, some predictability. I needed that essence of, I needed the parts of each stage of the journey that I went through in the odyssey of my youth. I needed the brotherhood from the skateboarders. I needed the dictatorial, leadership of my father and grandfather. I needed the excitement of, jumping off of cliffs into the St. Croix River. I needed all the parts of everything. And I was like, that's what it is. Right. That's where I can find it in the Army. And that's why it was such an easy sale. And just like I said, having not told anybody, I went in there and I was like, and I had already decided, that's the way I've always been. I think about it enough to the point where I've thought about it to a pulp and it's go time. I've made my decision and that's it. No one's stopping me. And
isn't it curious that if Navy SEAL was the thought, like why, like it's doing active duty Army is such a unique choice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, how did that thought get there? Like what part of your,
it was closest.
It was just like Army.
It was so simple. It was just closest. I was like that. I can get a ride to that, and I won't have to burden anybody to like get a ride to that place because it was right over by Maplewood Mall, and so that was like close. And I'm like, all right, I won't burden anybody. I can just go in there, get.
Is it in that strip?
Yeah,
it's right by the street.
Yeah,
I was a recruiter in the National Guard, Minnesota. Yeah, that's where. So my full-time National Guard job was recruiter right there,
yeah.
Maplewood Mall, right in front of Maplewood Mall, right there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And so, yeah, I did it all. I went through the whole process, got it all squared away, signed everything. I was ready. I was like, let's go.
Describe MEPS. How was MEPS for you in the 90s? Or no, this was early 2000s.
MEPS exists like a blur for me. I just remember I took the test. I showed up, took the test. They told me I could pretty much do whatever I wanted. And I had already known what I wanted. Because for me, I had a very Hollywood picture of what that all meant. I mean, at that time, there were posters up that said and the commercials like "Be All You Can Be" commercials were still around, and they still had like the sign with Uncle Sam pointing at you, and things like that, And I was like I need to be that guy, the be all you can be guy, you know? And I actually didn't even know really all that much about my grandfather's service. You know, my grandfather was probably the closest person I was to, and spending a lot of time with someone who was in the military, right? But he never really shared much stories. But come to find out, he guarded petroleum, you know, in Korea in the Korean War, you know.
Oh wow!
And so he was like security, you know.
Okay. What
He
branch?
had some amazing stories. Marines.
Okay. So the flag I have, you helped me fold. That's from my grandfather's service. He was Korean War veteran.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. So you're just like me, you're third generation, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, all I remember is I did well on the test, and I could do what I wanted, and that was it. And they were like, you scored really high in shape recognition or spatial recognition.
Okay.
And they were like, that's kind of weird. We've never seen anybody score that high on spatial recognition. And so that was like a weird thing, you know, and I remember just keeping that with me, and I'm like, what was that about, you know? And then I remember doing like the duck walk and like doing all the things, you know, just and feeling weird doing that, you know, in my underwear or whatever I was wearing.
Wait, you got to wear underwear?
I think I was I don't remember what I was. No, I don't remember. There's parts of it I just don't recall.
Mm-hmm.
I remember just kind of chomping at the bit to just get out of town.
But you had no broken bones. You had no surgeries.
I had nothing that I brought into it.
Sweet.
There was no concerns.
You got lucky because you were a skater.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Well, they asked about things, but it wasn't so much about luck. It was more about situation.
Okay.
So remember, like my being low socioeconomic, like we didn't ever we had like state insurance, but I only went to the dentist once in 19 years. We had state insurance, but we rarely ever went for like annual checkups and things like that, you know? And when I injured myself skateboarding, like a lot of times we never went to the doctor for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because that didn't really feel like a thing that you had, because it was somebody that had to bring you, and we didn't really have anybody to bring us,
yeah.
You know, unless it was something like detrimental. You know, like one time I had like an appendicitis attack. You know, I ended up being able to keep my appendix, but but I was in for that once when I was a kid. You know.
Who was do you remember his name? For whatever reason, I will never forget my recruiter's name.
No,
you don't remember his name?
I don't remember.
Okay.
No. And that's a kind of a weird characteristic of me. And I tried to do better with those things now, but like a lot of times I told you that like one of my Clifton strengths is input, and the kind of the exercises I do with that, I overflow and I lose a lot. You know, you sound like you had an appreciation for that kind of like where you take on a lot of information and then you lose some information kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of that. I take on a lot of information on the daily, and I feel like I lose bits and pieces of stuff. Not that isn't important, because he's an important person, you know, and it's cool, but like a part of me feels bad a little bit that I don't remember his name. Like maybe I should or something, you know? And then part of me is like, you don't need to remember his name. So because you need room for more information or something or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah, well, it's not going to hurt my feelings if the small group that I helped join the National Guard remembers me or not. But I do remember taking pride in their situation and like, okay, you genuinely want to join, for real. Okay, you need to trust me, okay? Like actually trust me in telling me all of your stuff so I can determine what I need to do to help you join.
Yeah.
Because I'm on your side. It's you and me versus MEPS.
Yeah.
MEPS is going to try to find out what I can't fix to keep you legitimately from joining the military.
This almost sounds like a verbatim, like it almost sounds like you're like reading the exact same thing like he said to me. You know?
It's like, well, they put that federal thing in front of you, which
I'm sure it's real, but I've never heard of anyone being prosecuted for lying at MEPS. It's like they're gonna get in trouble for lying to join the military.
Yeah.
Like that's the most patriotic thing.
Yeah.
Unless you literally like a sleeper cell spy agent, whatever, then okay, you should get cut. But like young people, like that's leveled up. You know, you're not trying to undermine the military. Like, I just want to join. I didn't tell you about my ADD or I took Ritalin, and so I had to stop my Ritalin so I could be off of it enough. And I remember being super crazy my junior year because I didn't have my Ritalin.
Yeah.
Because I heard that if you're on it, you can't join.
Yeah.
And
that was news to me, by the way. I heard that and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Were you on it?
No.
No? Okay. And so the question came for that. And my recruiter didn't tell me to lie. He did not do that. But he simply said, if you say this, it's going to be a no. If you say this, you're going to join. You'll be able to join. So I made my decision.
Yeah.
And I was able to get through. But
nice.
I did what I did, and I think it was an asset. Having ADHD or ADD is an asset for any grunt, any boot.
Yeah.
My case was combat engineer and then infantry, but
yeah.
You said you had a Hollywood-esque picture of military service.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a cinephile.
Okay. So what was your favorite military movie?
As a youngster, it would have been like Commando, Predator,
yes.
Right? You know. Yeah.
Okay. Can you get me that green bag, please? I have a gift for him. I'm so happy you said this. Okay. This is a little coincidental, and I wasn't sure if this gift would make any sense, but the fact that you said that, this actually makes a whole lot of sense. Yep. Okay. Where'd it go? Okay. So here's the gift, and it's the Predator patch. Oh. And I don't know if that's a direct translation for Arabic, but it was the over here.
Hey,
yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I'm so happy that works out because
I love it.
Yes,
and we're like we're so pumped about the lore right now in my family, me and the boys, because we're watching all the stuff and how they're tying it all together, and we're like, all right, come on, what's next?
That's a cool story. I love that stuff. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, that's gonna be.
Thank you for that. Yeah. That's cool. Meaningful gift, man. I like it. I wish I could just slap it right on there or something.
Right. That was on the website Gruntworks. I don't know if it's still a business or not, but I ordered it from gruntworks.com, and they have the really cool patch designs.
Got it.
That whole genre, and Mike and me being, we were talking about our kids earlier about weight classes, and like I was a senior at 142. I was so skinny, so small.
Yeah.
But I grew up watching Predator.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
Yeah.
I grew up watching Dragon Ball. All the fighters on there are all ripped and jacked.
Yeah.
I had zero interest. That didn't influence me at all to get into the gym, to work out, to get strong, it was nothing. It did any of those movies encourage you to get stronger or weight lift or?
Like
Pumping Iron from Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie.
A lot of what I did was because I knew that it was necessary.
Okay.
And so through that period of time in high school where we were out doing the things we were doing, getting in fights and all those things, I knew that you had to be that. But also too, it was image. Mm-hmm. In fact, that was a lot of it. A lot of it was just image, But I couldn't. I remember in wrestling practice, we used to have to firemen's carry somebody up the stairs and around the loop at Tartan, and then down the stairs, and then up the stairs again, and we had and you usually would carry the weight class under you, mm-hmm. or something like that, and then everybody would switch, And I remember struggling with that, and that's when I started getting in the gym and started building. And I think in my freshman year I wrestled 103, and I went from 103 to 145 in my like junior year.
Wow.
And it wasn't height. My height kind of started. My height stopped like after sophomore year, you know, and so definitely image. I was like, I perceived myself in the mirror, and I was like, I need to look a certain way. But then too, from the movies, the thing that I just think of the comrades, like just the camaraderie, you know, Red Dawn, you know, like just all the things, like, yes, like just the feeling of just like I could just imagine, I could close my eyes and picture fellow soldiers, all of us moving in a movement together, you know, and being and moving as like flowing in a unit, you know, in a cohesive unit. I could envision the esprit de corps, and I was like, I felt like very similar to like how I felt when I found my job as a hygienist. Like I felt like there was this gut feeling where I'm like, that could be a thing. I have like a hunch, like that might be the one, that might be the job, you know, or whatever. And actually, when I joined, I was thinking I'm going to be a lifer. I had like decided that, like there was like a little pre-decision in that, where I was kind of like,
join what, for the infantry,
for
or
the infantry?
Okay,
yeah,
right.
Yeah. I was like, and I carried that with me, like right after the recruiter's office. I was like I'm. And remember, I talked about too, where I was like, after I left the recruiter's office, I was like walking taller. I was like, I'm like a man of honor now.